They tell you Thailand is the land of smiles, but nobody warns you about the bureaucratic nightmare that can swallow your entire life in one afternoon. So I thought I had it all figured out. Retirement visa, modest savings, a simple life by the beach. Then one phone call changed everything. Mr. Harrison, your visa has been revoked. You have 7 days. 7 days to pack up 5 years of my life with a bank account that wouldn't cover a one-way ticket home. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our viewers who wanted to share his experience as a warning to other retirees considering Southeast Asia. I'm sitting on my balcony in Hua Hin, watching the sunrise over the Gulf of Thailand, when my phone rings. It's 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the caller ID shows a number I don't recognize. 5 years in Thailand taught me to answer every call. You never know when it's something important about your visa, your bank, or your life. The voice on the other end is crisp, professional, speaking perfect English with that formal Thai accent that always makes me nervous. Mr. Harrison, this is Officer Sirisak from Immigration Division 6. We need to discuss your retirement visa status immediately. My coffee goes cold in my hands as she explains the situation with mechanical precision. Your visa has been flagged for irregularities during our quarterly review. Your financial documentation no longer meets current requirements established under Amendment 47/2024. I interrupt her, my voice shaking slightly. I don't understand. My visa doesn't expire until next year, and I've never had problems before. She pauses, and I can hear papers rustling in the background. Sir, the requirements changed 6 months ago. All retirement visa holders must maintain 800,000 baht in their Thai bank account continuously, not just at renewal time. Our records show your account has fallen below this threshold multiple times over the past 4 months. The blood drains from my face as I remember the medical bills from my minor heart episode in March, the unexpected condo repairs after the flooding in April, the general increase in living costs that forced me to dip into my savings more than usual. But nobody told me about the new requirements. I protest, though even as I say it I realize how pathetic it sounds. Officer Sirisak's response is polite but final. All visa holders were notified through registered mail and email. Regardless, the current situation requires immediate action. You have 7 days to either demonstrate compliance with financial requirements or arrange departure from Thailand. 7 days. The words echo in my head as she continues explaining procedures and consequences, but I'm no longer listening. I'm thinking about my condo lease, my belongings, my routine at the morning market where Kunsiri saves me the best mangoes. I'm thinking about the life I built here after Linda died. The peace I found in this small coastal town where nobody knew about my failed insurance business or my daughter's disappointment in my choices. Mr. Harrison, do you understand the time frame? Officer Sirisak's voice cuts through my panic. Yes, I managed to say, though I understand nothing except that my world just collapsed. After hanging up, I sit motionless for 20 minutes watching the sun climb higher over the water. A fisherman's boat cuts across the horizon, and I wonder if he worries about visas or bank balances, or whether he'll have a home next week. My hands are trembling as I grab my wallet and keys. I need to check my accounts, see exactly how bad the situation is, figure out if there's any way to fix this nightmare before it destroys everything I've worked to rebuild. The walk to the ATM feels like a funeral march. Every familiar sight, the street vendor preparing her fruit cart, the monks collecting alms, the tourists already heading to the beach, reminds me of what I'm about to lose. I insert my Thai bank card with the same dread I used to feel opening insurance claim files that I knew would bankrupt families. The screen loads slowly, and when the balance appears, my stomach drops like an elevator with cut cables. 47,000 baht. That's roughly $1,300 USD, nowhere near the 800,000 baht requirement, and barely enough to survive another month, let alone buy a plane ticket home. My American bank account isn't much better. The app shows $340 in my checking account, money that was supposed to last until my Social Security payment arrives in 3 weeks. Between the two accounts, I have less than $1,700 to my name. A one-way ticket to Phoenix costs at least $800 during peak season, and that's assuming I can find something cheap with multiple connections. But even if I could afford the flight, what then? I have no apartment in Arizona, no car, no job prospects at 67. My brother Mike might let me crash on his couch for a week, but he's made it clear that our relationship has limits since I abandoned the family to move to Thailand. I check my credit cards on my phone, hoping for available credit I'd forgotten about. My visa has $2,100 available, but the cash advance fees and interest rates would eat into that quickly. My MasterCard shows $850 available credit. Between everything, I might be able to scrape together enough money for a ticket and a few weeks of survival, but the math is terrifying. I'll land in Phoenix with massive debt, no home and no income except Social Security that barely covered my modest lifestyle in Thailand, let alone American prices. Sitting on the curb outside the bank, I feel like the worst kind of hypocrite. For 30 years, I worked as an insurance adjuster, helping people navigate financial disasters, calculating risk assessments, advising families on rebuilding their lives after floods, fires, and accidents. I specialized in the mathematics of catastrophe, but I never properly calculated my own risks. I never planned for visa law changes or medical emergencies, or the slow erosion of savings that happens when you're not paying attention. The irony would be funny if it weren't destroying my life. A young Thai woman walks by with her toddler, and the child waves at me with that innocent friendliness that made me fall in love with this country. I wave back, forcing a smile, wondering if this will be one of my last interactions with the Thailand I thought would be my forever home. The mother says something to her child in Thai, probably warning him not to bother the sad old Farang, but the boy keeps waving until they disappear around the corner. That small moment of human connection breaks something inside me, and I have to wipe my eyes before walking home to figure out my next move. Back in my condo, I start making lists. What I own, what I owe, who I might call for help. The furniture is all rented or cheap purchases from local markets, nothing worth shipping home. My important documents are in order, thankfully, so that's not a problem. My biggest assets are my laptop, my camera, and about $800 worth of electronics. I could sell everything quickly, but it wouldn't make a significant difference in my financial situation. The real problem isn't what I own. It's what I don't have: options, time, and money. I open my laptop and start researching visa lawyers, immigration consultants, anyone who might help me navigate this bureaucratic disaster. The first few websites are clearly tourist traps, promising easy solutions for fees I can't afford. But then I find Kanika's site, Expert Immigration Solutions, no case too difficult. Her testimonials seem legitimate, and her consultation fee is 5,000 baht. Expensive, but maybe my only chance at professional help. I book an appointment for the next day, knowing I'm probably throwing money away, but desperate enough to try anything. The phone call to my daughter Sarah that evening is one of the hardest conversations of my life. We haven't spoken since Christmas, when she again criticized my decision to run away to Thailand instead of dealing with Mom's death like an adult. The time difference means it's early morning in Portland, and she sounds rushed, probably getting ready for work. "Dad, is everything okay? You never call unless something's wrong." I explain the visa situation, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to sound like the failure I feel like. Sarah listens without interrupting, which surprises me. When I finish, there's a long silence before she speaks. "Dad, how much money do you need?" The question is direct, practical, so much like her mother that my throat tightens. I don't know yet. Maybe enough for a plane ticket home and some money to get started again. I'm going to see a lawyer tomorrow, see if there's any way to fix this mess. "How much is a plane ticket?" she asks, and I can hear her typing, probably looking up flights while we talk. "About 800, maybe 1,000, depending on the airline and connections." Another pause. "I can help with that, Dad, but only if you promise me something. Come home and figure out a real plan. You can't keep running away from problems, and you can't keep making these kinds of mistakes with your finances." Her words sting because they're true, but I'm grateful enough for her help that I agree to whatever conditions she wants to set. We work out the logistics. She'll wire money to my American account once I have confirmed travel dates, and I can stay with her family for a few weeks while I figure out my next steps. It's more than I deserve considering how I've handled our relationship since Linda died. After we hang up, I feel a mixture of relief and shame that's become familiar over the past 5 years. Relief that I won't be completely stranded. Shame that I need my daughter to rescue me from my own poor decisions. The next morning, I take a taxi to Bangkok for my appointment with Kanika, spending money I can't afford on transportation, but desperate enough for professional help that I'll risk it. Her office is on the 15th floor of a gleaming tower in Salem, all glass and marble, and the kind of intimidating corporate atmosphere that makes me feel immediately out of place in my wrinkled polo shirt and flip-flops. The receptionist speaks perfect English and offers me expensive coffee while I wait, small touches that suggest this operation is more sophisticated than the visa mills I was expecting. Kanika herself is younger than I anticipated, maybe 35, with the kind of polished professionalism that immediately puts me at ease. She reviews my documents with the efficiency of someone who's seen this exact situation dozens of times before, making notes in both English and Thai, asking specific questions about my financial history and visa timeline. "Mr. Harrison, I'm familiar with your case type. The new financial requirements changed in February, but implementation was delayed until May. Many long-term visa holders were caught off guard because the notification process was inadequate." Her assessment makes me feel less foolish, like maybe I'm not the only person who missed the memo that changed everything. "So there's a solution?" I ask, trying not to sound too desperate. She nods thoughtfully, but her expression remains serious. Several options, actually, but they all require immediate action. The 7-day deadline doesn't give us much flexibility. She explains the technical aspects of visa law, the appeal process, the requirements for financial rehabilitation, speaking with the confidence of someone who understands systems I've never heard of. "The most straightforward approach," she continues, "is immediate financial compliance. If you can demonstrate 800,000 baht in your account today, plus pay the associated fines and processing fees, your visa can be restored within 48 hours. My heart sinks as she says the number. 800,000 baht is roughly $22,000 USD, money I haven't had in years. I don't have that kind of money, I admit. And she nods sympathetically. "I understand. That's why I offer alternative solutions for clients in your situation." She pulls out another folder, this one marked with my name. Option 2 involves applying for a different visa category while maintaining legal status through a series of extensions and border runs. It's more complex but possible. The process she describes sounds expensive and uncertain, requiring multiple trips to neighboring countries and fees at every step. "There's also option 3, she says, lowering her voice slightly and leaning forward. "I work with a network of contacts within the immigration system who can expedite solutions through established channels. It's not advertised publicly, but many of my long-term clients use this service when they face similar challenges." She slides a contract across the desk, most of it in Thai, but with clear English sections showing my name and a payment amount. 200,000 baht for processing fees and administrative costs. The number hits me like a physical blow. 200,000 baht is about $5,500 USD, money I definitely don't have. But Kanika's explanation makes it sound legitimate, professional, like a shortcut through bureaucracy rather than anything illegal. "This process guarantees your visa restoration within 72 hours, she says, her smile warm and reassuring. "I've used it successfully for dozens of clients over the past 2 years. The contacts require payment up front because they're taking personal risks to expedite your case, but the results are guaranteed." I want to believe her so badly that I almost sign the contract immediately. But 30 years in insurance taught me to read fine print, even when I can't understand the language it's written in. "Can I have this translated first?" I ask, trying to sound reasonable rather than suspicious. She hesitates for just a moment, maybe half a second. But in that pause, I see something that makes my chest tighten with anxiety. "Mr. Harrison, I understand your caution, but time is absolutely critical in your case. Immigration doesn't wait for translations, and my contacts need to begin the process immediately to meet your 7-day deadline. Every hour we delay reduces the chances of success." The pressure in her voice feels wrong, too urgent, like a salesperson pushing for a signature before the customer changes their mind. I tell her I need to think about it overnight, and she reluctantly agrees, but insists I decide by noon tomorrow or risk losing the opportunity entirely. Walking out of that gleaming office, I feel more confused and desperate than when I arrived. The professional presentation, the confident explanations, the urgent timeline, It all feels designed to prevent me from thinking clearly about what I'm agreeing to. That evening in my hotel room, I try to research Kanika's claims about visa restoration through special contacts, but everything I find online suggests that legitimate visa problems require official channels and proper documentation. The forums are full of warnings about scams targeting desperate expats, stories of people losing thousands of dollars to fake lawyers and fake solutions. But they're also full of success stories from people who found legitimate help through professional consultants. The problem is that I can't tell the difference anymore. Desperation has clouded my judgment, and the 7-day deadline is like a countdown timer in my head, making every decision feel urgent and necessary. I call Sarah again, explain Kanika's proposal and ask what she thinks. Dad, it sounds like a scam to me. Nobody guarantees immigration outcomes, and nobody demands that much money up front without proper contracts and legal protections. She's probably right, but what are my alternatives? I can't raise $22,000 for legitimate financial compliance. I can't afford the complex border run strategy, and I can't face deportation and a permanent ban from Thailand. Kanika's solution is expensive, but it's the only one that promises to let me keep my life here. I spend most of the night staring at the ceiling, weighing impossible choices, knowing that whatever I decide tomorrow will determine whether I stay in paradise or return to Phoenix as a 67-year-old failure. By morning, desperation wins over caution. I call Kanika's office and agree to her proposal, but I explain my financial limitations. I can't pay 200,000 baht up front, but I might be able to arrange financing or a payment plan. She's sympathetic but firm. Her contacts require full payment before beginning any work, no exceptions. However, she offers what sounds like a lifeline, a short-term loan through her financial network at 15% monthly interest. The terms are brutal. If I borrow 200,000 baht at 15% monthly interest, hollow 230,000 baht after 1 month, 264,500 after 2 months, and over 400,000 baht if I take the full 6-month repayment period she offers. But she explains it like it's a normal business transaction, something many of her expat clients use when facing similar challenges. Your social security income plus family assistance should easily cover the monthly payments, she says, and once your visa is restored, you'll have time to rebuild your finances properly. The math is terrifying, but the alternative, deportation and losing everything I've built in Thailand, seems worse. I agree to meet her the next morning, to sign the loan paperwork and begin the visa restoration process. That night, I lie awake doing calculations in my head, trying to figure out how I'll make the payments work. My social security is $1,847 per month, which should cover basic living expenses in Thailand, with some left over for loan payments. Sarah has offered to help with the initial costs. Maybe I can find some part-time work, teaching English or consulting for other expats. Maybe this will all work out. But deep down I know I'm walking into a trap. Every instinct developed over 3 decades of investigating insurance fraud is screaming that this situation is wrong, that desperate people make bad decisions, that legitimate solutions don't require secrecy and urgency and large cash payments to unnamed contacts. The problem is that I'm too far down this path to see any other options. Tomorrow I'll sign documents I can't read, borrow money I can't afford to repay, and trust someone I just met with my entire future in Thailand. Kanika's office feels different the second time I visit. The marble and glass still gleam, but the atmosphere seems more transactional, less welcoming. She has all the paperwork ready when I arrive, including loan documents that are entirely in Thai, except for the signature lines and payment amounts. This is our standard contract, she assures me when I ask about translations. All my clients sign these same forms. The terms are exactly what we discussed yesterday. But I notice things I missed during my first visit. The way her assistant watches me carefully, making notes about everything I say. The locked filing cabinet behind her desk, with what look like dozens of similar folders. The fact that she insists on cash payment for the initial processing fee of 50,000 baht, claiming her contacts prefer to avoid any paper trails that might complicate the expedited process. I brought the money, borrowed from 3 different cash advance services on my credit cards at crushing interest rates, but something about the whole situation feels increasingly wrong. Before I sign anything, I say, I'd like to call the immigration office to confirm that this type of expedited process exists and is legitimate. Her smile falters for the first time since I met her. Mr. Harrison, I completely understand your caution, but my contacts work within the system through established relationships and professional courtesy. They prefer discretion because their assistance technically falls into gray areas of administrative flexibility. If you call immigration directly and mention their names or methods, it could actually complicate your case and eliminate this option entirely. The explanation sounds reasonable, but the pressure feels constant and subtle. She's not threatening me or being obviously deceptive, but every question I ask gets deflected back to urgency and the need for immediate action. Your 7-day deadline is now down to 4 days, she reminds me. Every hour we spend on verification and translation is an hour we're not working on your solution. I'm trapped between my instincts and my desperation, and desperation wins. I sign the documents without reading them, hand over the 50,000 baht in cash, and agree to the loan terms that will probably destroy my finances even if everything works perfectly. Walking out of that building with signed contracts and empty pockets, I feel like I've just made a deal with the devil. But I also feel like I had no choice. For the next 2 days, I wait for updates from Kanika, checking my phone constantly and trying to ignore the growing anxiety in my chest. She promised results within 48 hours, but day 6 of my visa deadline arrives without any word from her office. I call repeatedly, but her assistant says she's in meetings with immigration officials and will contact me as soon as she has news. Meanwhile, my financial situation gets worse. The cash advances triggered fraud alerts on my American credit cards, and the companies have temporarily frozen my accounts pending verification of the unusual activity. I spend hours on international phone calls trying to convince customer service representatives that yes, I really did take out cash advances in Thailand, and yes, I really need access to my remaining credit. Most of the calls end with promises that someone will call me back within 24 hours, but nobody ever does. Day 7 arrives, my official visa deadline, and I still haven't heard from Kanika. I try calling her office again, and this time she answers personally. Mr. Harrison, I'm glad you called. There have been some complications with your case that require immediate attention. My stomach drops as she explains that her contact within immigration needs additional documentation and another processing fee to complete the expedited restoration. How much? I ask, though I already know I can't afford whatever number comes next. 100,000 baht, she says, but this will definitely resolve everything. My contact has personally reviewed your file and confirmed that this additional payment will guarantee successful completion of your visa restoration by tomorrow morning. I explain about my frozen credit cards, my lack of available cash, the impossibility of raising another $2,800 on such short notice. Her sympathy evaporates quickly, replaced by a businesslike tone that makes my blood run cold. Mr. Harrison, I understand your financial constraints, but my contact is taking significant personal risk to help you. Without the additional payment, I cannot guarantee any outcome. Perhaps you should consider other options at this point. The dismissal in her voice tells me everything I need to know about my 50,000 baht investment and the loan I'll be paying off for the next 6 months. I've been scammed. Not dramatically, not obviously, but in the slow professional way that makes you complicit in your own destruction. She never promised anything specific, never guaranteed any particular outcome, just took my money in exchange for vague assurances about contacts and expedited processes that probably never existed. I hang up and sit in my condo, looking at 5 years of accumulated life that I'll have to abandon in the next few hours. The irony is devastating. I spent my career helping people navigate bureaucratic systems after disasters, and I couldn't navigate this one. Worse, I fell for exactly the kind of scam I would have warned my own clients about. Desperate people making bad decisions under artificial time pressure, paying money they can't afford for solutions that sound too good to be true. My visa officially expired at midnight, making me an illegal immigrant in the country I thought would be my forever home. That morning I take a taxi to the immigration office in Hua Hin, hoping for a miracle, but expecting nothing. Officer Sirisak is polite but inflexible when I explain my situation. Mr. Harrison, your visa expired at midnight. You are now in Thailand illegally. You must arrange immediate departure or face detention and deportation proceedings. She hands me a form for voluntary departure, explaining that leaving voluntarily within 24 hours will avoid a formal deportation record and permanent ban from Thailand. It's a small mercy, but it doesn't solve my fundamental problem. I still don't have enough money for a plane ticket, and now I have less than a day to figure it out. That afternoon, I make the most humiliating phone calls of my life, asking everyone I know for emergency financial help. My brother Mike in Denver can spare $500. My old colleague Jim offers $1,000, but needs a week to arrange the transfer. My ex-neighbor Bob promises $300 if I can wait until his next paycheck. Even my dentist in Phoenix, who I haven't seen in 6 years, offers to loan me $200 when I explain the situation. By evening, I've managed to cobble together promises for about $8,000, enough for a plane ticket and maybe 2 months of survival in Phoenix, but not enough to save my Thailand life. Sarah agrees to coordinate the transfers and book my flight online while I prepare to leave everything behind. The conversation is stilted and painful, full of unspoken recriminations about my poor financial planning and worse decision-making. "Dad, when you get home, we need to have a serious conversation about your future," she says while typing my passport information into airline websites. "You can't keep making these kinds of mistakes. You're 67 years old and you can't afford to gamble with your financial security anymore." She's right, of course, but hearing it feels like another kind of death. I spend my last night in Thailand, giving away everything I can't carry. My neighbor, Mrs. Suda, brings me somtam and sticky rice when she sees the suitcases by my door. She doesn't speak much English, but she understands I'm leaving. She's been kind to me for 5 years, always smiling, always helpful with translations and local customs, and now she looks genuinely sad. "You come back?" she asks in broken English, and I want to say yes, but we both know it's not true. I give her my plants, my extra bedding, some of my books, my good kitchen knives. She tries to refuse everything, insisting I keep it for when I return, but I make her understand that I'm not coming back. At least something of my Thailand life will continue in her apartment. I walk to Hua Hin Beach one last time, the same beach where I scattered some of Linda's ashes 3 years ago, where I thought I'd found peace after her death and my business failures. The waves are gentle that night, and the moon is full, and it's beautiful enough to break your heart. I sit on the sand and try to figure out how I'll rebuild my life at 67, with nothing but debt and regret for company. The taxi to Bangkok costs 3,500 baht, leaving me with barely enough Thai money for airport food. At Suvarnabhumi Airport, I discover that my problems aren't over. They're just beginning a new phase. The immigration officer reviews my departure paperwork and informs me that leaving after my visa expires triggers an overstay fine of 500 baht per day. It's only 1 day, so just 500 baht, but it's money I can barely afford, and the overstay goes on my permanent immigration record. More importantly, the overstay mark makes future visits to Thailand unlikely. Even if I eventually rebuild my finances and want to return, immigration officers will see the violation and probably deny any visa applications. I pay the fine with my last Thai baht and proceed to the departure area, where I realize I haven't actually confirmed my flight details yet. Sarah managed to find a ticket to Phoenix with 2 connections: Bangkok to Seoul, Seoul to San Francisco, San Francisco to Phoenix for $847. It's the cheapest option available on such short notice, but it means 17 hours of travel time and 3 different airports. I have about $230 left on one credit card that isn't completely maxed out, plus the promise of money wired to my American account by the time I land. The plane takes off at 2 a.m., and I watch Bangkok's lights disappear below me, while trying not to think about everything I'm losing. I'm squeezed into a middle seat in economy, between a Thai businessman working on his laptop and a young American backpacker who's excited about her first Southeast Asia adventure. She asks me about Thailand during the meal service, and I give her the standard tourist advice: stay hydrated, respect the temples, learn basic Thai phrases, always carry your passport. I don't tell her about visa requirements or financial planning, or how quickly paradise can become a prison. I don't mention that the beautiful life she's imagining can disappear with 1 phone call and 7 days' notice. The businessman next to me works through the entire 6-hour flight to Seoul, probably making more money during those hours than I have left in the world. He's polite when we talk, asking about my time in Thailand, but I can see him calculating my situation. Old American flying economy with one beaten suitcase, obviously not one of the successful expats who retire to Thailand with proper planning and adequate resources. During the layover in Seoul, I tried calling Kanika one more time, hoping she might return some portion of my money or at least explain what happened to the visa restoration she promised. Her phone goes straight to voicemail, and when I call her office, the receptionist says she's traveling for business and unavailable for the next 2 weeks. I hang up knowing I'll never see that 50,000 baht again, and that I'll be paying 15% monthly interest on money that bought me nothing but a hard lesson in trusting the wrong people. The flight from Seoul to San Francisco is 8 hours, and I spend most of it staring out the window, thinking about the financial hole I've dug for myself. Between the cash advances, the loan from Kanika's network, and the credit card debt, I'm carrying about $15,000 in new debt at interest rates that will double the amount I owe within a year if I can only make minimum payments. My Social Security income of $1,847 per month might cover basic expenses in a cheap Phoenix apartment, but it won't make a dent in the debt payments while also covering food, transportation, healthcare, and everything else I need to survive. I'll need a job immediately, but who hires 67-year-old men with 5-year employment gaps and no current references? Sarah picks me up at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, and the Arizona heat hits me like opening an oven door after 5 years of tropical humidity. The drive to her house in Tempe is awkward. She asks basic questions about my health, whether I'm hungry, if I need to stop anywhere. But we both avoid discussing the bigger issues of what happens next. Her guest room is comfortable, and she's stocked the refrigerator with food I used to like before 5 years of Thai cuisine changed my preferences. But I feel like a charity case in my own daughter's home, a 67-year-old man who couldn't manage his own life and now needs rescuing by his child. The role reversal is humiliating, but I'm grateful enough to swallow my pride and accept her help. That first week back in America, I spend hours on the phone with credit card companies trying to negotiate payment plans for my debt. Most of the customer service representatives are polite but inflexible. They'll accept minimum payments, but the interest rates ensure I'll never pay off the principal. The debt from Kanika's loan is more complicated because it involves a Thai company and unclear contract terms, but the monthly payments are due regardless of whether her promised services were ever delivered. I apply for a part-time job at Home Depot after seeing their "We Hire Veterans and Seniors" sign. The application process is humiliating, explaining the 5-year gap in my employment history, providing references from a life I can no longer access, taking a drug test and background check for a 12-an-hour position. But they hire me anyway. 20 hours per week, flexible scheduling, employee discounts on home improvement supplies I can't afford anyway. It's something. For the first time since that phone call in Hua Hin, I have a plan that might work. $12 an hour times 20 hours is $240 per week, nearly $1,000 per month when combined with my Social Security. It's not much, but it might be enough to rent a studio apartment and start paying down my debt slowly. Finding housing turns out to be another challenge. Phoenix rents have increased dramatically since I left, and most landlords want credit checks, employment verification, and first and last month's rent up front. My credit score is destroyed from the maxed-out cards and missed payments, and I don't have money for deposits. Eventually, I find a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood for $750 per month, with a landlord willing to accept weekly payments and overlook my credit issues in exchange for an extra $50 per month. The apartment is about 400 square feet, with a tiny kitchenette, a fold-out bed, and a view of the parking lot behind a strip mall. But it's mine, and after sleeping on my daughter's couch for 3 weeks, privacy feels like luxury. I buy minimal furniture from thrift stores, a table, a chair, a lamp, basic kitchen supplies, and start trying to rebuild something that resembles a normal life. The routine helps. Wake up at 6 a.m., work at Home Depot from 8 to 1, grocery shopping and errands in the afternoon. Simple dinner while watching the news. Early bedtime, because I can't afford cable or streaming services. It's not the life I imagined at 67, but it's sustainable if I'm careful with money and don't have any major emergencies. But every morning I wake up thinking about Thailand, About my old routine of coffee on the balcony, watching sunrise over the Gulf. About the morning market where vendors knew my preferences and always had a smile. About the simplicity of a life where $200 per month covered everything I needed and left money for travel and restaurants and small luxuries. Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled the visa crisis differently. Maybe if I'd immediately called Sarah for help instead of trusting Kanika. Maybe if I'd researched the law changes more carefully or maintained higher bank balances as insurance against unexpected problems. Maybe if I'd accepted the reality of deportation from the beginning and used my limited resources for a clean departure instead of desperate solutions that made everything worse. But mostly I try not to think about what-ifs and focus on what is. I'm 67 years old, starting over in a country that feels foreign after 5 years away, learning that sometimes the biggest trap isn't the scam itself. It's the desperation that makes you vulnerable to scams in the first place. I'm learning that rebuilding a life at my age requires different skills than building one the first time. Patience, humility, acceptance of limitations I never thought I'd face. The debt payments are manageable if nothing goes wrong, but there's no margin for error. A medical emergency, a car repair, an unexpected expense of any kind could collapse my careful budgeting and send me back to Sarah's couch or worse. I live with the constant anxiety of financial instability, knowing that my buffer against disaster is exactly $0 and that my safety net is entirely dependent on family members who have their own lives and problems. 6 months after returning from Thailand, I'm still working at Home Depot, still living in my studio apartment, still paying the minimum on credit cards that will probably outlive me. I've established a routine, made a few acquaintances among my co-workers, found a Mexican restaurant that serves decent pad thai when I'm missing Thailand. It's not the retirement I planned, but it's a life, and after everything that happened, having any stable life feels like an achievement. Sometimes customers at Home Depot ask about my slight accent or tan lines that haven't completely faded, and I tell them I lived overseas for a while. I don't explain about visa requirements or financial planning disasters or Thai lawyers who disappear with your money. I just help them find the right screws or paint colors and go back to work, grateful for the distraction of other people's home improvement projects. The strangest part of this whole experience isn't the financial loss or even the humiliation of starting over at 67. It's the realization that I spent 5 years in paradise without truly appreciating what I had until it was gone. I was so focused on the money I was saving, the simple lifestyle, the escape from American complexity, that I never properly valued the daily miracles of my Thailand life, the kindness of neighbors, the beauty of ordinary sunrises, the peace of a routine that fit my actual needs instead of society's expectations. Now I wake up in Phoenix looking at a parking lot instead of the Gulf of Thailand, and the loss feels as fresh as it did that first morning when Officer Sirisak called to destroy my world. But I'm learning to carry that loss differently, not as a weight that crushes me, but as a reminder of what's possible when you plan better, save smarter, and don't let desperation override common sense. The hardest calls I make now are to other retirees considering Southeast Asia moves. Word gets around in expat communities, and people who knew me in Thailand sometimes contact me for advice. I tell them the truth. Paradise is real, but it requires proper preparation, adequate savings, and constant attention to changing regulations. I tell them about emergency funds and backup plans and the importance of understanding visa requirements completely, not just assuming everything will work out. Most importantly, I tell them about the predators who circle desperate people like sharks sensing blood in the water. Kanika wasn't uniquely evil. She was just a professional taking advantage of a system designed to confuse people like me. The real enemy isn't individual scammers, but the desperation that makes us vulnerable to anyone promising easy solutions to complex problems. I never found out what happened to my 50,000 baht or whether Kanika's financial network actually existed. The loan payments stopped automatically when my Thai bank account was closed, but the debt probably still exists, somewhere in the labyrinth of international finance. I've stopped trying to track it down. Some lessons are expensive, and this one cost me everything I thought I wanted, plus money I didn't have. But it taught me something I couldn't learn any other way. That home isn't a place you run to when you're escaping problems. It's a place you build carefully, with proper planning and realistic expectations. My Thailand chapter is closed now, sealed with an overstay stamp that ensures I'll never return. But sometimes, when the Phoenix sunset hits the mountains just right, or when I smell lemongrass at the Asian market, I remember the good parts: morning coffee on my balcony, conversations with neighbors who became friends, the simple satisfaction of a life that fit my actual needs instead of my imagined desires. Sarah and I have rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully, with the understanding that my independence depends on not needing rescue again. She helped me when I had nowhere else to turn, but we both know that kind of help has limits. I'm grateful for her support, but I'm more grateful that I haven't needed to ask for it again. Working at Home Depot isn't the retirement I planned, but it's honest work that pays my bills and gives me purpose. My co-workers don't know about my failed paradise or my bureaucratic disasters, and I like it that way. They know me as Gary, the guy who's good with customers and shows up on time, not as the cautionary tale I could be if they knew the whole story. The debt will probably follow me to the grave, but the payments are manageable as long as I stay healthy and employed. I've learned to live within smaller margins, to find satisfaction in simpler pleasures, to appreciate stability even when it comes with limitations. It's not the life I wanted at 67, but it's the life I've earned through my choices, and accepting that feels like a kind of wisdom I couldn't have gained any other way. Every month I send a small amount to Mrs. Suda in Thailand, money for taking care of my plants and keeping my memory alive in the place I thought would be my forever home. She sends pictures sometimes. My bougainvillea blooming on her balcony, the mango tree I planted in the courtyard bearing fruit. It's a connection to the paradise I lost, but also a reminder that life continues everywhere, even in the places we can no longer call home. If you're thinking about retiring to Southeast Asia, learn from my mistakes. Save more money than you think you need. Understand the visa requirements completely, and check them regularly because laws change. Have multiple backup plans and emergency funds. Most importantly, don't let desperation make you vulnerable to people who promise easy solutions to complicated problems. Paradise is real, but it requires more preparation than most of us realize. And the cost of getting it wrong is higher than you can imagine until it's too late to change course. My name is Gary Harrison. I'm 68 now, and this is how I learned that sometimes the most expensive education comes disguised as the cheapest solution.